At this point, we get to roll into the part that I have been waiting for literally for months. We're going to get into the DXC Invitational. And I said, you know, this is our Shark Tank-like way of curating or identifying startups and insurtechs that we can incorporate into our portfolio and into our digital platform, as Phil mentioned there. But I'm going to set a little bit of a background, a bit of a context first before we dive in. I'm going to ask you to reflect back, if you will, on all the conversations we've had this week around platforms and around the way the industry is changing, and where we started to talk about the need for insurance companies, really anyone, whether you're in the distribution side, the carrier side, the reinsurance side, to start looking beyond your own enterprise boundaries and look beyond the capability that you're creating and go outside, tap into that outside-in innovation. And whether that's innovation at scale by being created by the technology giants, many of which are here as sponsors at our event, whether we're needing to go look outside the insurance industry and just tap into the capability and the innovation that's becoming more and more relevant as we look to compete in this area of customer experience, or whether in the context of our competition, whether you want to tap into that innovation at speed that really can only be achieved in that unique context of the startup structure. We think that, we see evidence that your companies are actively out looking at insurtechs, and there's really two challenges there, right? The first challenge, obviously, is to try and identify good candidates. There are a tremendous number, it's a growing area, there's a tremendous number of insurtech companies, startups, and so the challenge you've got is to identify which ones do you want to invest your time and energy in. The second is, once you've identified those ones, how do you effectively integrate what they do into essentially the fabric that powers the business? You know, how do you tap into their capability, integrate it, aggregate it, combine it with what drives your value chain today, and then render that, but render it right out to the edge, right out to that point of interaction, that point of engagement, the point where decisions are getting made. Literally putting it at the fingertips of the key personas, right? Of the broker, the agent, the advisor, the customer themselves, the CSR, the adjuster, the underwriter, right? These are the personas that we're trying to enable. And we think the answer, obviously, if you've been in any of our sessions this week, we think that a digital platform is a big part of solving both of those problems. But in particular, in terms of the curation and identifying, we are actively, as part of not just engineering and creating that digital asset, we are actively out looking at the insurtech marketplace and using our own sensors, if you will, to identify and shortlist for you, really. We're out there curating an ecosystem. Sorry, I'm getting all wrapped up here. I'm just going to settle down if you guys don't mind. There we go. It's a human being up here. Anyway, yeah, and there's lots of ways that we're doing that. We are this is not my day. Anyway, here we go. We'll start again, right? So we are out actively forming relationships with the incubators and making, in some cases, even investments in those fintech incubators. We are holding events, so we'll talk about the one that we just ran now. We're out sponsoring events, so we are either speaking or sponsoring. We're out at InsurTech Connect in Europe, and we were out at InsurTech Connect in Las Vegas as a sponsor. And we use these mechanisms to meet and identify and begin to filter out, if you will, the ones that we think have tremendous potential. But the one really effective mechanism is this notion of an InsurTech Shark Tank-type competition. So it just allows us to triage very effectively and in a way that's sort of respectfully not burdensome and invasive for the startup, and it's easy for us, right? So this isn't our first one. We ran our first event earlier this year. You can see from the slide, it's been a bit of a journey. We did an event called Springboard down in Australia early in the spring. This was our first event, and out of that, we identified two winners. Phil talked about those, I think, in his presentation, a company called MapSite and a company called Gurus. Since then, we've been working with both of those companies on, you can imagine, the technology side, taking their capability and integrating that into our platform. But also, we've been working on some softer things in terms of working out ways in which a big company like ours or a big company like yours can more effectively commercially work with a small startup. We've been helping them learn how to talk about their products. We've been helping them with structure agreements, lightweight relationship agreements, all the way down to, as you can imagine, the technology aspects of it. So we executed that event, we harvested the learnings, and then we said we wanted to do the next one here in the United States.